So my name is Joanna Cypress. I'm the operations manager at CMAP. And today's panel is media that are too cool for school. So we're going to be talking about youth media programs and trying to incorporate new technologies into that. And I'm here today with Alex from Davis Media Access and Julia from, I'm going to let you pronounce it.
Kauai Community Television.
Cool. So to start, Julia, do you want to just introduce yourself and then go into kind of what you'd like to share with everybody today?
Sure. Well, a lot of you guys already know me, but I'm Julia, and I work at Kauai Community Television. And I previously worked at Cape Cod Community Media Center in Massachusetts, so I've actually done a lot of youth programs, oddly, over the years in different formats. So I've seen a few things that have worked, a few things that haven't quite worked, and a few things that could potentially work with a little bit more work. So, how many times can we work the word work into a sentence? So, anyway, who is currently running youth programs at their access center? Okay, you work in middle school, you don't count. Okay, so cool. Do you find that they're successful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything you guys actually need to learn today?
New idea.
New ideas.
You can always learn something.
Well, one of the things that I did a few years ago that was kind of successful, and I actually based it off of PAC TV's model, but it was slightly modified. They had been running a series of, what was it? They were 1 week courses with a whole bunch of kids. It was like a summer camp type thing, only they couldn't call it camp because legal reasons. So you call it a workshop or a program of sorts.
I was going to say what legal reasons, because we call it camp.
If it's a camp, then it has all kinds of insurance issues.
Oh.
And I figure,
Watch out.
And then it's probably to
Yeah.
feed them too, right?
Yeah.
If you go to camp, you have to feed them as well?
No,
Or
but it's
there's
Department of Public Health, a bunch
Okay.
of stuff.
Okay.
So,
Just letting you know.
yeah,
They were the ones
little
who told us.
technicality.
Nomenclature is important, especially with kids.
So what PAC TV was doing, which I thought was really cool, was they were doing this series of week-long things with a ton of kids, and each group had, what, like 5, 6 kids in it. And they all worked together over the course of a week to do an entire short production from start to finish. So it was like the first day they would all get together, they'd brainstorm, they'd write something up, they'd cast it, they'd figure out who's going to be, you know, what parts, and they drew subjects and stuff out of a hat, which I thought was really cool. So you gave them no option. You just said, all right, you're gonna make a silent movie, and then you pick up maybe a prop, and it's gonna have, you know, a red balloon in it, and it's and then there's gonna be a character who's a carpenter, and you add them like, you know, like it's an improv thing almost, and you just give them this thing, and then just let them have at it, and let them write it, let them cast it. The next day is all shooting, and then the next few days is all editing, until the final thing when, you know, they have their finished video, which after the course of the whole summer, and there's a whole bunch of kids doing this, you have several different videos which then go into competition with each other, and then you can have a grand finale and a screening, which turns out really cool, and kids get really into it, especially if there's prizes involved. Kids love prizes. So that worked really well. I took that model and I stretched it into a 2-week process instead, because I thought that it was a little more intensive, you know, like to really, really get it into their heads. We spent the whole first week talking about composition, lighting, and, you know, like just really, really basic filmmaking stuff, storytelling, media literacy. You get those things really drilled in. So I liked taking the extra week because I felt like it gave you that extra time to really properly get in there and teach them, where the week felt a little rushed to me, but when you're working with that many kids, it just kind of depends. It depends on how many kids you're working with. So that I found was pretty successful. The thing with kids, I find, is that you gotta let them be very hands-on because they get bored. And as long as you give them creative control and let them have fun, but you know, make sure that they stay focused, it helps to have a couple interns to keep an eye on things. And you always want to make sure you get signed permission slips. If you ever go off the property and go somewhere, you want to make sure that, you know, everybody useful, and you typically want to make sure that the kids get their own transportation to wherever the location is that you're shooting. That's my best advice so far. Anyone have any questions, by the way? We're seeing more people roll in, so.
You want to play the video?
Sure. So the group that I taught, we ended up making a 5 to 10 minute short movie. It's called Polarized. The kids wrote it themselves. They acted in it. They did everything. Few minor technical glitches you'll see with audio. You know how it is. You know, but
And was it an element-driven thing, like it was random? You drew the elements out of the hat thing?
yes, it had a camera in it, and it was supposed to be a suspense movie, and that was the only rules I gave them.
All right. Well, what were you looking for in that short movie?
A proper story to be told from start to finish. You give them the guidelines. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's got to have an actual flow to it. You try to convince them not to use things like zombies or elderly people, things that are hard to come by. Everybody wants to make explosions and all that cool stuff, and it can be done, but most of the time, kids don't actually want to do the work that it takes to do those kind of special effects. In theory, they do if there's a quick, easy button that just said, I want to make this blow up. But it's not, you know, anybody that uses After Effects or does any, you know, stuff like that, they know effects take a lot of work, and kids typically don't have the patience for heavy stuff. So you try to keep effects to a minimum if possible.
Is it working?
Working?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready whenever you guys are.
That was me screaming, by the way. That was my word.
Good morning, I'm Rosefield, Channel 17 News. Tragedy struck yesterday as beloved rock star Lee died mysterious causes while signing autographs at the Village Green. Fans are mourning.
Oh my god, this is the saddest day of my life. I can't believe he's gone. I went to all his shows and I was his biggest fan. And now all I have left of him is this used up tissue from him that I found in his dumpster.
Well, that's devotion for you. More on this story at the top of the hour.
Are we off yet? Thank God. I swear my job is more ridiculous by the day. Seriously, who is this deep guy? Why do we care? Iris, where is my latte? I asked for one like an hour ago. Sorry, Miss Fields, I got tied up. You would be, wouldn't you? Miss Fields, line 3. Miss Fields, line 3. Oh, now what? Hello? Who is this? What camera? What are you talking about? Freak. Who was that? Some whacked up guy screaming about a camera. Maybe we should investigate this news story. A stupid story? Why? It's a good publicity piece. Your ratings will go through the roof. Fine. That's good rule, boy. You said that this would be a publicity piece. There's no one here. We just got here. Maybe we should look around? Hey, I call the shots here. Let's look around. Hello? Oh, hi, Mr. Plant. Get that camera out of my face.
Why am I getting your packages in my mailbox?
What package? What are you talking about?
Listen, forget about it. I have a lead on the toothpaste rod story. Now get your butt back in here. We can use these cameras nowadays anyway.
I need to get back to the office. What about our story? You'll find something.
It was the craziest thing I ever saw, man. The guy took a picture, and the next thing I knew, the musician dude was dead. It was like the camera was possessed.
The camera?
It was so trippy, man.
Is he in? I guess not. Mr. Plant? Was he in there? I guess he know too much. Have you seen Rosie? She was just in Mr. Plant's office. Hello? Oh my gosh, Mr. Plant! Are you okay? Which way did Rosie go? I think that way.
911.
Rosie, no!
So yeah, that was a group of 5 kids. They were between the ages of 12 and 15.
That was the 2-week?
That was the 2-week one, yeah.
Very good. Can you talk a little bit about the technology tools that you use with the students and how you went about kind of teaching them?
We used Canon GL2s and just regular Sennheiser shotgun mics and stuff, like all the basics. And then for post-production, we were using Adobe Premiere and very light After Effects, extremely light After Effects, just on that little motion tracking shot at the end and that stuff. But the rest of it was all done in Adobe Premiere. So yeah, that model, I felt like that model worked pretty well. The kids had a blast. All of them are still actively involved in doing media. Actually, one of them went to college for it after that. They got really inspired. So it was a really fun thing. They all really bonded over it. We had lots of like little inside jokes too that made it fun. Like I had them design their own little company logo, their production company logo, and they came up with Jacquet, which was the first letter of everyone's name all scrambled up, and it sounded French. They're like Jacquet, and they had a blast with it. And then obviously all the names were plant related, Mr. Plant, and all that stuff, because public access, everybody's got a potted plant, right? And that was a big joke, and the kids got a huge kick out of it. So yeah, so that was really fun. Other programs that I've done recently at Hawaii, we worked with some foster kids. We did a foster kid program, which was a little bit harder to keep the kids' attention because obviously they had different kind of issues at home too, so there was a lot of distraction going on there. But we did have one kid who ended up finishing the class, and we threw him a big pizza party, and he loved that. Kids love pizza parties. Like it's just a general rule of life. So if you are ever doing anything with kids, make sure you throw them a party at the end, because that will be incentive enough for them to do anything. And that's pretty much my spiel.
question. When you're getting ready to start, do these kids know each other before they get
No, and
together?
actually, one thing that I would recommend, that we did with this group, but haven't ever done since then, but I think really worked well, was I actually did an application process. I made the kids fill out an application, not their parents, but you have them fill out a quick little form, say, your name, your age, what school do you go to, and it briefly, in one paragraph or so, just explains why you're interested in doing video. And if they can't answer that question, then they probably shouldn't be in the class.
And it's for pay. I mean, their parents pay.
That one they did. We actually, because it was such an intensive, it was 2 weeks long and it was 10 to 3 every day, so it was like a long thing. The kids actually paid, I think, $300, which was pretty reasonable. It covered lunches. It basically covered the cost of us getting them lunch every day. So yeah, that. But normally, yeah, like at Hoike, we don't charge kids at all for it, which I like. I like that. But again, if you charge them, then they tend to take it more seriously, and the parents take it more seriously, and you better pay attention. You better come out of this with something.
How about icebreakers? Like when you're starting with a new group of kids, how do you get over the shyzies? Do you have techniques or do you just jump right into the whole
I'm pretty goofy anyway. I think the rule, first of all, be lively, be the goofy one, and don't be afraid to be the goofy one, because if you are the goofy one, then the kids will not feel so stupid being goofy themselves. And one thing about doing video at all, especially if you have to be on camera, is that you can't be afraid to make a little bit of hay, you gotta be a goof. And the kids need to get over it too, so I think the more they see the adults and the interns doing it, then they'll feel safer and more secure to do it themselves.
All right, we'll do some more questions and kind of conversation at the end. So now I will have a little PowerPoint for you guys on some of the youth programs that we've done at CMAP, and then I'll turn it over to Alex, and then we'll kind of go into more of a conversation about youth media programs. Okay, I guess I'll present like this because I'm going to be going back and forth between the PowerPoint. But at CMAT, we've been doing youth media programs for quite a number of years, and just within the past few months, I actually redid a lot of our curriculum. One of our main after-school programs is we partner with the YMCA, and we do an after-school program with 3 of their elementary schools. So we work with students that are generally 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Their elementary school goes to 6th grade. And so we do a 2-hour class with them once a week for about 10 weeks. And traditionally for that 10-week program, we were using video cameras and microphones and working with them on making videos around certain themes that they talked about at the YMCA. And generally we have about 10 kids in the class. And so there was always sort of a challenge with keeping, 20 kids engaged in making these videos, especially because it was an after-school program. So a lot of them might get picked up by their parents halfway through. They've already been in school for 8 hours. So it's like, how do you keep these kids engaged in learning about video and creating videos after they've already been in school for 8 hours? And so that was a challenge. We had a lot of kind of behavioral things, and then we start working on a movie, and then the week that that kid who was starring in it, we were going to shoot it, and then they weren't there. And then you're like, okay, but we have to shoot the video this week, and the kid who's starring in it isn't here. What do we do? And so then you have to go and like change everything. And so I was like, let me try and do something different this year, and we'll see how it goes. And it just so happened that the YMCA was purchasing 20 iPads. And so I saw that as a really good opportunity to try out something a little different and use iPads instead of video cameras. And so this is kind of the program that I came up with, and we're actually halfway through right now. So this is not like completely baked. I'm kind of in the middle of it right now, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. So as I said before, it's a 10-week program, 2 hours after school. And one of the things that I tried to do was make it more project-based and make it a little bit more week to week. So this way, if you have those kids that kind of dip in and out of the after-school program, at least if that kid shows up for 1 week, in that one session he comes to, they're going to learn something and they're going to maybe walk away with a project. So I tried to do 1 to 3 week project cycles. Also, we tried to kind of pair them up. So they purchased 20 iPads, but we have 3 sites. So we kind of share them between the sites. So at one site for the program, we're using 10 iPads at a time. So if we have 20 kids one day, that means 2 kids can share 1 iPad. But sometimes they like to work in bigger groups, so we're letting them work in up to groups of 4. And another great thing that this allows them to do is it kind of puts the technology in more kids' hands and lets more kids come up with ideas and get to execute those ideas. So if they're working in a group of 2, they're getting to create their own thing just in their little group. And like I said, they can work in groups of up to 4. So the first 2 weeks, I did just some basic iPad movie making. We downloaded iMovie on all of them. So we gave them the iPads, kind of let them get to know them a little bit, get to know the technology, although probably most of them know how to use iPads, have iPads at home. Some of them might pretend they have iPads at home, so they might think they know them, but they don't. So for some of them, it is new technology. And so we just did some basic PSAs with them and taught them a little bit of interviewing, kind of just getting them comfortable being on camera and using the iPad with video. And then also I wanted to introduce them to editing, which is another neat aspect that the iPad allowed us to do, because traditionally in these after-school programs, we didn't really have time to teach them editing, or since we do it on site at the schools, to bring in enough laptops of editing software to have all of them be involved. So if you have 2 kids and 1 iPad, they're each going to kind of have a chance to get to play with iMovie. So they got to shoot some basic video and then just learn iMovie and get to play around with it a little bit. So that's kind of what we did the first 2 weeks. Then the second 2 weeks we did an animation workshop, which you can see that picture right here. That's kind of their set. They were doing an X Factor claymation. And for animation, we left it open. We said, you can use anything, but we had clay, so they kind of all gravitated towards using the clay. But we said they can do drawings, they can do cutouts, they can move objects. But a lot of them were really interested in using the clay to do claymations. And then we used a free app called iMotion, which is really basic. I think there's probably a lot of better apps out there, but you have to pay for them, but we were just using this free one. So, it gets the job done, and it basically just takes still frames, and you can set how many kind of frames per second you want to do. And then we were exporting it and bringing it into iMovie, and then in iMovie they can add in some sound effects and some music, and there's the ability to do a little voiceover if they wanted to. And then we're going to do, so right now I'm kind of in the middle of doing the week 5 and 6 TV show. And then after that we're going to do some digital storytelling. And then the last week we're going to do movie trailer making. iMovie for the iPad comes with this ability to, they give you templates to make movie trailers. So we're going to have them kind of come up with their own movie trailer ideas. So this is just the basics of kind of some of the technology that we're using: iPads, iMovie, iMotion, tripods. Another important thing is to get adapters for the tripods. Adapters for the tripods for the iPads, because otherwise you're moving all over the place and it's just not a steady shot. Especially when you're doing something like animation, you really need it to stay steady. So they make all kinds of crazy contraptions for iPads, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And they make really simple adapters. I found one on Amazon that was like $24 that uses with our tripods. So generally we'll bring like 6 tripods out with the adapters, and then they kind of just share and rotate them. So that's kind of an important piece of technology. Additional add-ons which I didn't have, which I might look into moving forward with it, is a microphone. Definitely the audio on the iPads isn't great when you're trying to shoot a movie with kids, so that's something that I'd like to look into. And also just the little adapter lenses as well, so you can kind of get some different kinds of shots. And then, like I was saying before, maybe a more complex animation program, because the free ones are pretty limiting. So those are just kind of my thoughts on what would be good. All right. So that's our iPad program that we're just trying out. Another program that we just tried this summer that's also brand new for us was a video game design camp. And this was wildly popular. This was probably one of our most popular programs. We charged a really nominal fee. We charged $25. And we had a ton of people signing up. It was interesting though, it was all boys. I think we had one parent of a girl call and ask to sign up like partway through the class already. But it was all boys aged 12 to 17. And we used Flash. And so in Flash, they learned how to sort of create their own graphics. And then they got a template for the code. So it was like a video game that was kind of already built that they then went in and adapted the code to do different movements and do different things. For this class, since in-house we really didn't have the expertise to do something like this, we were really fortunate enough to have a board member that is a teacher and has taught Flash. And so he volunteered to come on board and teach this class for us. And he already had some curriculums that he just adapted to work with this program. So like I said before, they used templates to make their video games. And most of them worked in groups. There were a few that worked individually, but working on the video games really worked great in groups because you had some kids that were really into creating the graphics and were really artistic, and then other kids that were more the kids that can sit there and get all the code right and do the corrections with that.
Did you say you had someone in-house also knew how to teach video game development?
No, so we had a board member that led the class, and then I just kind of helped co-teach the class. So it was new for me too, and I just followed along with the board member. His name was Rob. I just followed along with Rob, and then I tried to go around and help the students where I could, just from picking it up from being in the class with them. But it was a lot, and I think it's definitely helpful if you have somebody that you know within your media center circle that knows how to do this type of stuff. And I think the other thing that was really great with this was the template for the video game. So the kids didn't have to code an entire video game. They got a template of a very simple basic game, and then they went and added in all their own graphics and then added in their own movements depending on what they wanted. And then we gave them little cheat sheets of kind of what the code is and where to add it in. Another thing about this class was we didn't have a lab that could accommodate 20 kids with Adobe Flash. But we were fortunate enough to partner with one of our local schools that were located at a school, and they had a lab. So we asked them if we could use the lab. So we were able to open up their lab for a week of the summer to do this class. So we kind of promoted it and registered the students and got everybody signed up. And that's it. And these are just some pictures of, that's one of the sets from the animation class, and this is kind of one of the video games that they worked on. That's it. Yeah.
Could you give a little more description as to the first program of the week, 7-9, where you do digital storytelling? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we do a digital storytelling class that we've mainly done with adults. It's a 3-week program in which we work with them in developing a personal story. So they write a narrative about something that they want to share. And then they'll go and collect pictures, whether personal pictures from their family, pictures from the internet. They can get some audio, they can record their story as a voiceover, and then add music. And so it's just like a short personal narrative. And so, that we're totally going to try piloting it with these students. I haven't gotten to that week yet, so I can't let you know how it's going to go, but I'm basically going to ask them to try and write about something personal, whether it's, their favorite subjects in school, whether it's a sport they like to play, a family member that's important to them, their favorite pet, and just really try and get them to write a short story about something important to them. So that's what I'm really looking to do. And then have them bring in objects or pictures, and then with the iPad we can just take pictures of them and then bring that into iMovie and record their voiceover over those images.
Not so much a question, but a resource. There's a company in New York called Padcaster. So they make some supplies, including this great rig to put on an iPad. so you can put it on a tripod. But they also have a lot of recommendations for software to use. It's a great cinematography software that makes the iPad work more like a camera than an iPad, and then they recommend some editing things. So it's a great site, and the Padcaster itself is really good. And just kind of connected to the idea that you're talking about, the digital storytelling, which I think is great. Chapman College in Orange County, as part of the application to their film school, they say you need to make a 3-minute video about yourself, but you can't be in it.
Well, I'd like to see some of those. Thanks. Yeah, I think kind of one of the challenges with this that I've realized with the iPad is that, and we were talking about this earlier, but it's sort of, you know, are we teaching filmmaking? Are we teaching technology? Are we teaching self-expression? And there was totally a difference between if I give them a video camera and I give them an iPad and what the finished product looks like, and how can we adapt, or you know, how can I adapt in teaching them to still be cinematic when they're using an iPad. Anyway, I'm going to move on and pass it to Alex.
My name's Alex Silva. I'm the program manager at Davis Media Access. And Joanne, I wasn't in the program because I was asked to kind of step in and add some more information. We have some youth media camps that we run during the summer. I also, before I worked in community media, I worked for a company that called Internal Drive that ran summer camps. They run them all over the company for kids, teaching web design, video, game making, website, multimedia for youth. So I've kind of done a lot in this area. The camps that we have are a media literacy camp, and I guess I can't call it a camp anymore. It has to be a workshop. So anyone who missed that, apparently there are some legal issues with calling it a camp. So don't call it a camp. Youth media literacy. The camp. I'm gonna say camp because yeah, it's 4 years of doing it. Ages 10 to 13. Because at 14, anyone can volunteer at our center and do things. So we wanted to provide something for youth who couldn't actually just outright come in and volunteer to produce a show. And we had the cutoff at 10 just because the ages are very different from even going 10, 11, 12, 13. You'll see, you really have to think about the age group of the kids you're teaching. I know you said you had all the way to 17, right?
It was a huge age gap.
There's a huge age gap, and even when I did the other camps, it can be very tough to blend those kids and get them to cooperate. The older kids don't want to hang out with the younger kids, and so you kind of have to be very careful how you structure in that sense. So we do these camps for that age range, and we also have an animation camp where we teach stop motion animation. These are 1-week camps. Originally they started at, I think, it was like $125 maybe. It was like $100 and maybe a $25 material fee for the animation camp. We're up to $175 across the board for all the camps, basically because we have to hire an assistant. Like she said, you have interns. You probably need to find somebody to help out the instructor, depending on how many kids you have. I think if you're one person, you can probably handle 6 to 8 maybe. More than that, you're not going to be able to give the personal attention that they need. And as well, if you have, if you're like me and you have another job you're doing while you're teaching a camp and you have other things, you might need to duck out and cover some other stuff, and it's good to have an assistant around. So in the media literacy camp, what we do is obviously we teach them to try and analyze what they're seeing on TV, how to look at a commercial and know, who's the target audience, what message are they trying to send you, and really convey that media is about communication. You're trying to communicate a story, a message, something to someone. And to be aware that what they're seeing everywhere on the internet or wherever it is trying to tell them something. What is that message? What are they trying to tell you? And the second part of that camp is they make their own fake news programs and PSAs. So some are real, actually. Some of the kids, like this past summer, they came in and they wanted to do a big Save the Frogs campaign, which they wanted to tie into something that they were doing at school. So they based all their PSAs and the materials they created around this saving the frogs from pollution and pesticides. And then at the end of the camp, we have we do this for the animation camp as well, a screening. for the parents so they can see what the kids have been doing all week. And that's very important, really, for the parents. The pizza is important. The kids love the important, that's huge. But the parents really like to see what the kids have been up to. And you might have parents that ask, during the week, what's going on. And I would try and avoid that. Just say, you'll see at the end of the week, because then it becomes very distracting. And we give out certificates, because parents love certificates. The kids will forget them and leave them behind, but the parents love certificates. So we do that. The animation camp, I get in there, we use a program called iStop Motion. We take a laptop, we have a bunch of obviously old laptops that we recycle for this purpose. They are Mac laptops, it is a Mac only program. I think there's some other software for Windows, and I know there's some open source software out there. iStop Motion, you can get a 5-pack family license for like $150 or something, $180. So we just put that, and we hook a video camera to each one so they can see a live feed of their stop motion. So that lets them see what they did in the last frame and the previous frames. It kind of ghosts it in there. And then we just give them some clay and tools, and I show them the basics of how to work the software and let them go. When I first started the camp, the first year, I tried to give them all these lectures about the principles of animation and how squash stretch works. And the kids just, at that age, they don't want to sit through it. They're ready to, they just want to start going. So over the years, what I've done is instead I create these YouTube playlists of animation showing different techniques, different styles. It's not just stop motion. It's 2D, 3D animation, animating with paint, animating with sand, animating on glass, paper animation, cutout, post-it animation, people who animate graffiti on the walls in Rio and around the world. Trying to expose them each day. We take a little time to watch animation of different styles, just so they realize that what they're doing will lead to other things. And obviously they can see in the real world, animation is being used more and more everywhere. You see it in commercials, all the movies are using it, all the visual effects are based on it, their entire career paths in individual specialities within animation that they can follow. So it's very popular. The animation camps always sell out right away before any of the other ones. We can only handle, like I said, about 6 to 8 kids because we just don't have that many laptop camera setups. And the physical space required, obviously, you need to have a room where you can kind of leave things out and clean it up at the end of the day, but you don't want to tell the kids, well, you got to take it all down and then set it up the next day and then it's not going to match. So that's the way those 2 camps run. There are more things, I guess. I can show 1 or 2 of the little examples. There are some issues that we run into, which I'll show some of the animation. But does anyone have any questions right off the bat about that? And then there's a program called Game Maker if you want to teach game design. We used at the other place. It's inexpensive. It's a Windows program, but it's you can do all kinds of games very easily, and it's kind of like I wouldn't say point and click, but I would say it's a lot easier to teach than Flash. So if you were going to get, if you don't have a specialist in Flash or somebody who knows that, you can look into Game Maker and see if you'd be interested in using that. Yes, sir.
I think your YouTube animation playlist sounds fantastic. I don't know if there's any way to get that list from you.
Sure. I mean, it's just I just see animations and I favorite them. There are ones in there that are Oscar-nominated shorts. There's this guy Pez. He animates all these little objects. Maybe I can even show you some of them on here real quick.
So we went to your YouTube,
what we can do is I have my card, and you can send me an email, and I'll send you my Dropbox link that I just sent to Joanne that has all my digital storytelling files, because I have a huge directory of material I've collected on digital storytelling as well, because we want to expand and do you're doing now a 2-week camp. So I got in this conversation with some of the older girls, because they're the ones who actually, at age 13, are ready to start thinking about telling stories and focusing and all that. And they were like, oh yeah, we want to do a longer camp where we can actually storyboard it out. And that's another thing, right? So storyboarding is something that everybody in media that produces pre-scripted stuff talks about. Storyboarding and pre-visualizing what you're going to tell people. The younger kids, storyboards don't have to be anything more than stick figures. But it's kind of hard. Some kids will take right to it, like drawing out the little story that they want to tell, and then they'll go out with the camera and they'll shoot everything, just like they have in the storyboard. And honestly, it tends to be the boys. They don't want to do that. They just want to go out and run out with the camera. And obviously, the older they get, the more likely they are to be interested in the storytelling aspect and want to storyboard and think about what they're doing. But as you saw, like your kids were younger and that was a fantastic piece. I mean, that was loads better than what I've seen come out of some of the.
2 weeks helps. 2 weeks makes a difference.
So,
Oh, and on the subject of storyboards, there's a really good app for an iPad called Storyboard Pro, and you can actually just take photographs and insert little figures in, so you don't actually have to be able to draw, which works really good for people who don't like to do storyboards.
which also reminds me when we were talking about the iPad. The nice thing about the iPad is, if you hand that to a student, you're handing them an entire workstation. They can shoot the video with the device, they can edit the video on the device. There's more and more software being developed to add effects, everything. That iStop motion, the animation, is available for the iPad. So you could actually have an iPad there doing the live preview on a stand. Like, we haven't upgraded that yet because we don't have the money for the iPads yet. And then, they just hit the button and start taking pictures. And obviously they'll have to be a little careful they don't jostle it or disturb it because then they're going to offset it. It's a little easier with the tripods for them not to bang it around. But, so in a lot of ways, and I mean, you see this trend in education overall. I mean, the iPad and tablet devices are the wave of the future. And having those tools and not having to have an entire computer workstation, with Final Cut or Premiere or whatever on it to say, oh, here, now you can edit your video. Because that's the next step. The kids I have, and we have kids that come back and repeat the workshops every summer. The kids that I have that are 13 that have done the video workshop and the animation workshop, they take their stop motion and they go in and they start editing it, making cuts and adding effects, and things that the younger kids who haven't had that maturity level, but also haven't been through all the camps, that they don't do. So editing is like the next step. First learning, just to plan the story and shoot it. But then they start going, oh, wait a minute, if I do this, and then they start thinking about the editing. And if they have an iPad, they can do all of that. You don't have to get them extra equipment. And you don't need the top model iPad. You just need the base model of Wi-Fi and the base amount of memory. I've shot, even just on my phone, my iPhone, I've literally shot an hour of video, and it only took up like 8 gigabytes. So you can easily fit these short things. And stop motion, they're not going to be shooting much more than maybe 5 minutes a week. I mean, I think that was our record. Because even at 15 frames per second, it takes a long time. That's the only complaint I get from the kids is some kids is like, oh my God, I can't believe I just spent all week and all I've got is 30 seconds. They love their 30 seconds, but then they think about, well, do I want to do this for a career or do I want to shoot video? And I like the animation more, but it takes too long. So.
Alex, where are you
Yes.
located?
Davis Media Access?
So y'all should offer a class to train us on how to do these. I came to Hawaii.
When I sat in and had TV, that was one of the best learning experiences I did. I just went to the station and just watched the teachers in action, just watched the class. And honestly, if you get an opportunity to just go to another access center that's doing something like that and just sit in on it, then
And you mentioned working at Cape Cod. I just was at the Northeast Conference, and I was asked to sit on the animation panel there. And the girl who put it together, I'm not sure if it was Cape Cod, but the one she's in is Falmouth or Cape Cod. And she's doing an animation program there. And and she's teaching using Dragon Frame, which is professional. They got the educational discount, so they got it for like $300. But it's the professional software that all the stop motion animators are starting to use now. It was developed by stop motion animators for stop motion. And they're using the Canon camera, and they have a room, and she teaches workshops to adults, as well as kids, and people from other media centers on how to do animation. And it's been very successful for them as well. But those aren't, the only ideas. Like you said, you're experimenting with the digital storytelling. Getting kids to tell their story, that's big because you can tie that into the school education. If you have educational access, there's all sorts of projects that you can use to tie media in. And the iPad, the tools, and the phones that new iPhone, they're selling them dirt cheap, the color ones. I guess they're not selling too well. So they're starting to give them away for $50 or free with a plan. So if a kid has access to any of those things, the software is the same as pretty much the iPad and the iPhone. So whatever tools they have, you can use them. The picture quality is great. So, and the parents, you know, I know we have this concern that like, oh, it's got to look super professional, and the parents are going to be wondering what they did all that week. But I think the parents put learning at a very high priority, but I've also noticed they put whether their kid's having fun. And if the kid's coming home and saying, I had a great time, and you know, I can't wait to go back tomorrow, that is as valuable or more valuable, especially during the summer camps. And you know, oh, this video is no good. Because at that age, I mean, come on, even as professionals, we don't want to crank out the top level stuff. So.
Do you have any samples of the
Yeah,
work?
I was just gonna. Yeah.
Also, along the lines of the digital storytelling, it's actually, when I was doing research, I found some apps that even give you templates for the iPad. I didn't end up downloading any of them because you have to pay for them, and we're on a budget. But it'd be cool to try and download some of them and play around with those apps and see if that would be helpful to have the students use some of those apps that give them the tools and the templates and a framework for it as well.
So a lot of these are super short. They don't really have audio because the kids at the time are not doing audio. So you can see that some of them are going to be. Is there audio? You see they're really simple things. This one they did some green screening. One of the examples I want to show you, which gets to a larger issue, will come up in a minute or so.
What's the program we're for?
Okay, so these were done with what's called iStop Motion. It's made by a company called Boinx Software, B-O-I-N-X. They're based out of Germany, and they do only Macintosh software. They also, if your station's interested in it at all, they also have sort of this portable studio software that you can run on a laptop or a Mac, where you can connect cameras in, and it lets you switch the cameras and create a web stream and put subtitles in and effects and stuff. I'm going to skip over the other ones because those are the ones I want to come back to. So then, 3 years in, we decided instead of letting the kids kind of go just crazy and develop, well, actually, let's look at this one. So this one is kind of cool because they just animated. Is there audio on this? And then they added the sound afterwards. We went into our sound booth and they just, oops. You can see for a lot of these kids, it's really playing in front of the camera more than storytelling. And then for some kids, it's about storytelling.
Hey, what am I doing? Cards! I love playing cards. Where's the card go? What? Ooh, an air hockey table. Unshare with you. Okay. Boing, 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 boing. Bang!
Yeah.
Whee!
So sooner or later, it always seems to devolve into a fight. I have to say, which is what I'll be getting to in the other one. So then one year we decided we'd try and have a thing where we improvise the story out first on the first day and have them script it all. And I gave them the theme of a visit to the zoo. So they came up with a whole story, and then each little group tried to animate one of the scenes, you know, one of the exhibits, portions of the script that they had come up with. So this one's 3 minutes. Probably won't show the whole thing.
This is an art.
The audio is mixed.
Don't get your hopes too high, sweetie.
penguin.
So it was all about a
Hello,
rebel penguin.
everybody. Welcome to the Susurrina Zoo. This way, everybody. This is a calm, answering octopus. It is never aggressive. Now let us move on. Here are some of the deli penguins. They are always black and white.
Hey, there's the rebel penguin. Seize him!
Let's move on to the turtle. Those fools will never catch me, rebel penguin. Turtles are known for their extraordinary shell strength that never crack. Here, turtle, you look sleepy. Let's move on to the giraffe exhibit.
So I think I'll stop that one
Giraffes are
there.
known for eating only grass and plants. Let's move on to the redhead.
Anyway, he's got some chicken under the plant, even though he's supposed to be a vegetarian. So it kind of goes on like that. And I think then this year we just went back to letting them kind of go crazy with their own stuff. And let's see. Now here's one that was done by the 13-year-old who really started getting into sort of, you see the same sort of experimental stuff, but then put a little bit of a story in. And he did all these effects and sounds. So the last two I want to show you brings up sort of an issue that you'll probably run into if you have young boys doing animation, which is I like to do violent stories. And my policy was sort of, first of all, it's not the sort of thing we would allow if they were shooting video. You know, they wanted to bring in their fake airsoft guns and all that. But with animation, I felt it was better to let them do what they want, and then their parents can see that. And then if it's something they need to talk to them about, then they can do that. And this actually came up because at the Northeast Conference, I think we showed this one, but we didn't show the second one. Because there was concern about it, and we never got a chance to really discuss the issue
Here's
of
your mission.
freedom of speech.
Gasp! That's my father! Oops. Good job, man. Dad? Hello? Is that you? Dad? Who's that face? I hate you.
Whoa! Then they had a Jesus come that kept making an appearance. I'm not sure what the deal with that was. Some inside joke amongst the. We also did some whiteboard animation. That's an easy way actually to do hand drawing, because otherwise 2D drawing is a very difficult, time-consuming way to teach animation to kids. It's extremely rare, I think, that you find kids that are willing to put in that level of patience. But if you do it with a whiteboard, you'll find that it's very easy for them to do things, and they can actually get a lot done on a whiteboard. I don't think I have examples here from that. This is the one, well, okay, let me show this one and then we'll go back to one last positive. This is the second episode of the one they didn't want to show, because they actually got into politics for this one.
Oh my gosh! But that would cause chaos.
Oh well.
America.
So you can see why there'd be some controversy regarding those videos.
These days.
But, you know, obviously, yeah, well, yeah, these kids are 9 to 13. That was made by two, I think, 10 and 11-year-old that were like friends.
Yeah.
That's something you'll have to decide your policies. I'll go back to that in a second. You know, how much do you want to support free speech, freedom of expression, what you want to teach the kids? And then obviously, you know, you could say, oh, we can't do that. Then I'm not saying that's going to lead to anything in the future, but I think it's better maybe to let them get that out so you know what's going on and what they're thinking about. And let the parents all see this at the end of the week. So the parents know what the kids are doing, and they can talk with them about it if they feel it's something that you need to be concerned about. And also, some parents, you know, they might get upset, oh, you're letting this kid do that, and that's a bad influence. But again, that's a parenting issue that they should be handling. And we feel that it was really important to just let the kids do their thing. Like I said, we would have not let them do anything like this with actual video. However, I will tell you that I had two of the youngest kids come in, and they showed me their videos on YouTube that they had been doing. And they were running around their house with airsoft guns, shooting each other. They had full effects. They had the flashes, they had the bangs, they had everything. They learned how to do all these visual effects from watching YouTube videos. And it was much more sophisticated than, I was like, holy cow, these kids are doing all these crazy visual effects already. I mean, it looked like they were running around with, obviously there were bullets, but the shooting looked real. So these are just a few things to be aware that, you know, they might come up and be prepared to deal with them.
What did the parents think about those videos?
They laugh. I mean, they know it's, you know, they talk to the kid or whatever, but it's kids playing. You know, kids have always played and played out violent things when they're boys. It's whether they keep doing that as they get older, I think. That's where it starts to go.
With real gun.
So, the Girl Scouts did
Every
it.
single one had violence.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
It's
just-
tough. You know, you can say, don't do that, but this one, I'll just play this because it's really short, and it was my favorite that we've ever had over the 40 years. This was an 11-year-old girl who took 10 toothpicks and did this.
There's a theremin in there.
Bars.
This is what I meant about the whiteboard. So there is hope. And she drew on the table, and I was like, what are you doing? And then she said, no, it wipes off. And I was like, oh, okay.
Alright, cool, so I guess now we'll open it up to more questions and conversations and things that kind of came up for you guys, or things that you guys are working on at your stations and in your workshops that you'd like to share with us as well.
Another question for you about when you were talking about, I guess, just sort of analyzing media, and you're talking about like the target audiences of commercials and stuff. I run a middle school camp also, and I have a lot of trouble showing them any kind of playback and wanting them and having them focus and actually pick up on anything. So I wanted to just
well, what we do with that is we give them homework. So they get a little list, and their assignment is to watch a half an hour of television. Which, here's another surprising thing, over the past 4 years, more and more of the kids are like, we don't watch TV. Or I'm not allowed to watch TV, one or two of those, but usually, oh, I don't watch TV. They're watching everything on YouTube and on demand. They're not sitting, they don't even know, like, I think one time he had to explain what a commercial was. What? To me, yeah, one of these kids.
Kids today.
Just because they're no longer associating the messages maybe they see on YouTube, the ads that are in there, as, oh, that's a commercial. Because all the traditional broadcast models are really breaking down in a lot of ways. Really, I don't know, really, I think the broadcast guys don't realize that they're dead. They just don't know it. At least the over-the-air type stuff. So we give an assignment, watch a half hour of TV, list the commercials you see, and describe them, and then, tell them, and that's how they're forced to do it. I don't sit there and like, oh, here's a commercial, what do you think is going on? It's just one of the assignments they do, and then, another assignment is, okay, take one commercial you saw on TV, and you have to draw out and describe the shots that were used in that commercial. Was it, we have a lesson, medium, close-up, establishing shot, and all that. Then they have their little sheets, and they go through and they analyze something at home, and they bring it in. So each day it's one simple thing like that, and the rest of the day is planning and producing, for the productions and stuff.
So then I guess,
but that's how we.
As a follow-up, and I guess this for sort of anybody here, is there anyone who knows a good technique for doing sort of review where you're sort of showing the kids either what they've done or some product that you want them to sort of highlight some aspect of?
Can you rephrase that maybe?
Sure, for example, if I had some content of theirs that they had shot and I want to say hey, look at how bad the framing was here and stuff, I find that they zone out immediately and there's no real way of doing any of that. So.
And what age group?
10 to 12, 10 to 14.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I find that anywhere from 10 to 12, it is hard to grab that attention. Once they hit 13 or so, then they start to develop those faculties and become more kind of aware of that larger picture. And then some kids are, I don't know, they're just naturals at it. I mean, somehow they go out there with a camera and they're like, oh, we're doing this and we need you to stick in a fake building behind here. Even the 10-year-old girl that was working with this one group, and they knew what they wanted for green screen. Oh, you have to green screen this in here. They didn't know how to do it, but they knew the term was green screening, and they knew it was going to put in something behind there that they were pretending to look at.
By the way, green screens are like crack for children.
Oh yeah.
And that's also one very, very effective tool. We actually had a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, we actually had 40 students from the middle school just show up at Koike. And Koike is tiny. It's a log cabin. It's like one very small place with a very, very small studio, not even a fraction of the size of this room. So it was like, oh crap, what are we going to do with 40 kids? So we set up the green screen, opened up the studio, wheeled out one of the monitors so they could see it in the larger lobby area, and then opened up the control room and then just let them have at it on the green screen for like 2.5 hours. We had improv comedy. They had a blast, and a bunch of those kids ended up coming back.
So did you run different things?
You do,
behind them?
yeah. So if whatever system you have in your studio, most switchers now have green screen built into them. So what we did was we set up like a whole bunch of silly backgrounds. I tried to find as many really just funny ones as I could find, just these giant turtles, so that like the kids could pretend they were about to get eaten or something, just really ridiculous stuff that every time I change an image, and you find a bunch of them, like 100, so that every time you change an image, they have to come up with new jokes and stuff, and that is very, very effective and works very well. If it's like a day trip kind of thing instead of like a 2-week camp or whatever you're doing, like something like that.
The kids are very good at improv.
Mhm.
You give them a very loose set of parameters, and they will come up with hilarious stuff. Green screening is great. I mean, the kids, they're aware of technology, but they don't always know how to use it, which is kind of addressing what you were saying earlier. You know, sometimes there's an assumption by the adults, I think, that, oh, the kids know exactly how to use a computer or an iPad or whatever, and they don't, because they don't have training. And they're, in a lot of ways, they're much more complex devices now than they were, 10 years ago. And even though they keep saying, oh, we're making the interface simple, and it's true, with an iPad they are. I mean, we see little 3-year-old babies zipping through iPads and doing stuff, but things on computers are not so obvious sometimes. So it's not like these kids are experts at the video software and the concepts of, especially like you're trying to teach storytelling and framing and edit. Okay, if you do, we have this video, it's an old VHS tape which we digitized, the Mystery Files of Shelby Woo that my coworker found, and it's about one of these Disney TV shows maybe or something, but they went behind the scenes and she explains how they create the mystery of the show. And they show how you can change the whole perception of a single scene with different music. How just by changing the lighting you can make something more dramatic or fun. How a sound effect can make one scene look one way or a different way. And they just kind of go through and show these illusions that obviously the media uses every day, and how they can change the telling of a story. And we show that at every camp. And it's great because it shows the kids, oh, wait a minute, all I have to do is flash the light and put some spooky music, and all of a sudden I've got a mystery story. Whereas if I put a laugh or whatever, all of a sudden it's a comedy because they just walked into a room full of laughing people or something. So that's kind of a neat thing.
What was that called?
I'll give you my email because I have no idea where it came from. It's called The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, and it's got to be from the 90s or something. It's a pretty worn out tape, and we finally put it on a DVD, and then I put it as a digital file. So yeah, I can probably give it to you as a download or something, throw it in Dropbox. But it's very short, it's like 5 minutes, and it explains all the different behind the scenes. Like it starts with her talking, oh, my name's such and such, star of the thing. And I do this mystery, and then they pull the camera back, and then you see there's all these people around, and it's a fake set. But in the beginning, you wouldn't know that. And kids start to see, oh, I see how these things work. And it's like I said, when they watch the stuff on YouTube, there's a lot of people out there teaching how to do these effects and create these illusions on YouTube, and the kids are watching it. Maybe the parents don't realize they're watching it, but they are. They love Freddie Wong. Freddie Wong. They love Freddie and his brother. They're the ones who kind of got that all going. Yeah. So, but the kids want to know how to do these things. So if you create a workshop that teaches any of it, you just need to figure out what higher level message you want to incorporate. So we teach how to make video and fake newscasts and use the green screen, but we're trying to get them to analyze what they're seeing with the media literacy. The animation is more sort of for them to have fun and be exposed to how they can do that themselves. Because, you can see there's not necessarily the Oscar stuff in the last one. But there have been tons of stuff that's Oscar nominated that's very short.
So do you all, is there underwriting for your classes, or do you say within weekday?
Oh yeah, what do you guys?
They don't pay anything?
Me. I'm always available and very affordable, so. No, we don't have like that big of a thing, we don't have that many kids coming in. Our volume isn't too intense because we're a pretty small island, so it hasn't become an issue yet. When I was at C3 and we started getting a lot of kids in, what I usually do is try to find the best interns I can find. And by the way, always try to get the best interns you can find, because if you get bad interns, it can be like having 2 extra kids in the class. And And they tend to be worse, actually. With the interns that I had for the group that I was working with were not ideal, and it ended up being a lot bigger of a headache for me than it was worth. Like it was almost better to not have interns at that point.
They don't know how to supervise kids of the
Yeah,
younger
or
age.
we had one who would intentionally like rile them up too. It was like, what are you doing, dude? Just calm them down. So yeah, you want to make sure of that. One thing that also works really cool with kids too, I don't know how many of you guys have an actual studio facility, like a real studio, a good sized studio with a real control room, but if you just do a regular studio production class with a group of kids who already know each other, that works fantastically. If you do like 5-minute, my style was always to do 5-minute mock productions. So we go through the whole thing, you know, like everybody's got a position, director, technical director, audio, VTR, graphics. You got 3 people on camera, we got a floor manager, and explain to everybody what their job is. All right, you know, floor manager, you're gonna do this and this and this. And then we go through the whole process, so, you know, start at black and then go up to graphics and music. And then as soon as the music and graphics fades down, it's the talent on screen. And hi, and welcome to the show today, and blah, blah, blah. I let them talk about whatever they want. I have no rules about talent. I just say, get on there and just make something up. Because they have the most fun with that. You know, if you give them too much structure on what they're supposed to do on camera, then they tend to withdraw a bit. They get like shyer. But if you just say, just be goofy and have fun, they'll, you know, have a little bit more fun. So you do the whole mock production with the 5 minutes, you give them the cues so that they know when to wrap it up, and you make them go through this whole cycle a bunch of times. As soon as you do one, you switch everybody up. If that's something you haven't done yet, who hasn't been talent, you know, you drag people up from the stage to be talent. And then at the end of the class, you watch them and you constructively criticize, all right, you know, what could have been done a little bit smoother, and usually they already know. Usually they're like, oh, the floor manager yelled out 2 minutes instead of just holding up his hands, you know?
Yeah, they get on each other's case. We do the exact same thing.
Yeah,
They know.
Or the mics, you know, the music is still playing at the beginning of the show and the mics aren't on yet, and you get 30 seconds of people going, yeah, so that happens. And they know, they figure it out very quick, because when they're actually doing it, they learn it. And when you're explaining it to them, they look at you with that blank stare. Like, what is
Yeah,
she
the
talking
hands-on.
about? The hands-on is key when you're working with kids because they have to. I mean, there's no other way they're going to process it.
Do any of you have ongoing programs during the year with a group of older kids?
Yes.
If you do, how does the content change? How do you?
So like I said, once the kids hit 14, they can volunteer. We have 2 sort of things going on. One is high school interns. So they're all drafted and interviewed. They have to apply for the position, and my coworker interviews them. And they become the mobile production team that's responsible for all the sports productions and the school plays and so forth. And we have a paid sort of production assistant staff member that supervises, will drive the van, things like that. But they go out and during the course of the year, it's a year-long commitment, they go out and they crew and staff and do the football shoot, the volleyball, the school play, whatever, with the things that we have. We don't have a truck, an actual production truck, we have a van that gets the equipment there, and then at the theater we have some permanent equipment that's set up, some cameras and stuff. But, so that's one thing that's available to everybody. Then anybody can come in, and right now I'm working with a group of youth, teenagers that are like, 16, 17, just before college age, juniors and seniors, that are doing their own television show. And basically what happened is I said, I want to have a youth media show here, we need some more programming. And so I recruited a former intern and said, hey, would you like to be the lead on this? You don't have to do it. That was the first thing. We had a meeting with about 12 kids and said, listen, this is what we're going to do. You don't have to do this. In fact, if you don't want to do it, don't say you're going to do it. We don't want you around. And of course, we lost 2 or 3 that said they were going to be there and then didn't show up. But the girl that I chose as the producer was dedicated through the whole year. She's trying to get into college right now to do this. This is what she wants to do. She's trying to get into film school. She's doing the Chapman application and a couple other places. And she's just once a month, she tries to get people in. She interviews her fellow students. She got a co-host. She recruited her neighbor. They had never met. She and her neighbor had never met, but she found out that he was interested in film, recruited him, so they co-host the show. they'll go and interview kids at other schools about the upcoming big football game or soccer game. Who's going to win? What do you like about one kid got a concussion in rugby, so they did this whole sports safety episode where they just went around and interviewed people about their injuries. They've interviewed other student filmmakers and shown their films. They do movie reviews, like they get in there and they just talk about how much they hate whatever the latest movie is, it seems. One guy has put on this Anchorman type personality, and I'm like, okay, go for it. If you want. You don't have to be yourself. Freedom of speech, that was one of the things we told him. Is this isn't a school-sponsored activity, unlike your other internship. You can do or say whatever you want. You can be critical of the school if you want. This is on the public access side. And they love that. They're like, oh, we can do whatever we want. And so they've had issues with trying to recruit more people as people drop in and they have interest or lose interest. And what all I do basically is provide the support, and they're like, oh, you need to use this studio. Make sure you've made a reservation. I'm there to help them set up equipment if they need it, as an extra crew member if they need it. Gradually training them all how to use the cameras and the switchers, because some of them were recruited actually from other school districts. They're not even local. They're coming in from Sacramento because they've gone to the other schools to do bits, and then they say, hey, we're doing this show and it's for youth, by youth. Hey, you want to be part of it? And they start coming over, for a couple months and help out. So that's just the way we support that, and it's worked out really well. And a lot of these kids want to go to film school or get in somewhere where they can do media, and so they're really motivated. And there were a couple of girls that had to do some stuff for a Chinese class they were taking, and they wanted to come in and do videos, and because they had learned everything by volunteering at this other show, they were able to come in and they produced this really cool video for their Chinese class, and I guess they got A's, that's what they told me. They turned that in as their homework assignment. And some of the schools are emphasizing technology now, project-based learning, and so the kids are getting assignments to do things, not just turn in a paper, turn in a keynote, turn in a media piece, turn in something. So by saying that here's a resource, you don't have to have your own cameras. You can come in and do all these things with all the media tools we have for your schoolwork. That's an opportunity. And the same thing, we reach out to the local college. UC Davis has a film studies program, but they don't have any equipment or studio. It's all an intellectual exercise for them. They used to back in the day. They had a studio and everything, but they got rid of it through budget cuts. So one of, he's no longer with us, but one of my coworkers, he went over there and gave a presentation at the film club, and all of a sudden then we have all these college students coming over. Oh, you guys have free equipment? Because we do not charge for memberships or for the use of the studio or for anything. We try and make everything economically accessible to everyone by zero, which isn't always a good idea actually, because some people don't value free. They'll sign up for workshops, and you'll be sitting there and like, I had 5 people signed up, where are they? And they don't show up. Yeah, so we're flirting on. We don't do that with the kids stuff because, like I said, we have expenses related to it. And we use it to raise some money. But the college students, they love it. They come over and they borrow the equipment and they do their videos, and that way they actually have stuff to show. We've also had students come in to volunteer, recruited students that way to volunteer on the regular shows that we do. And then they have stuff for their college applications. And one girl, there are actually 2 people that came in after they graduated college because they had no practical experience, spent almost a year volunteering with us, and then went out and were able to get jobs. Because the job market was so tight, it's like, oh, you have a film degree but you have no experience? But one girl went, and a couple months later she started production assistant or something at a news station in Palm Springs, and in a year she was the news director, the morning news director, because she had gotten so much practical experience at the station. So you have to find different ways, obviously to present yourself to your community. And if you're looking at youth, you're looking at grooming them, because I had a girl in the first camps, 4 years later, she's in working on the teen show, because now she's older and now she wants to do more mature stuff. And so now she's in there, and then she's going to go off to college. And then when she comes back, maybe in another 3 years or 4 years, she'll come back if she's still around, and doesn't go do something else and volunteer at the station. So you see people. One of our current high school interns now he's a little tiny kid. He's in one of the first camps, and he came back a few years, then he disappeared, then he got older, then he came back and was doing some videos. Then he said, oh, I want to apply for the internship. Now he's interning, he's getting ready to apply for college. So you find you're grooming your future people if you work with youth, especially if they're the kind of kids who like to stay in their own community and they don't just want to get out.
Do you ever work with special needs kids?
Indirectly. So there's some county programs, and they made some arrangements, and they came in, and people in wheelchairs and stuff like that. So we did actually have to remodel the front of the building to provide ramp access and some other things. We had to comply with the Disabilities Act, and then modified one of the edit suites so he could get in and out. And he's done some things, and but a lot of that was covered through his own programs that he was doing. And then we helped facilitate, provide the equipment, provide a place for him to show his work, because he was like, well, I've done this piece on, what it's like to be in a wheelchair, and he wanted people to see it. So, said, well, you can do this, you can do that, we put it on the station, obviously. But that's the only particular way that I can recall.
I saw a segment one time on TV, and I don't remember if it was public or not. It was about a school in Pennsylvania that had an Asperger's group, and they used media as a way to kind of foster them to become individuals more outspoken and to come out of their shells, shall we say, with Asperger's.
Well,
And they did newscasts, and they were not afraid to be in front of cameras, but so then that helped them to be in front of people.
We're actually going to be starting,
It was a fascinating story.
at the weekend, we're going to be starting a group for autistic kids.
Right.
We haven't started it yet.
Same type of thing.
But yeah, we're planning on it, and it seems like it's going to be, actually, I've seen examples of it where it's been extremely successful, so I think.
I did work with a lot of kids with Asperger's at the company that did the summer camps before that, yeah, and the media did help.
It seems to bring them out. They aren't afraid of the camera, but as they are, I should say, it's uncomfortable in front of the camera, as they are hesitant to be in front of people.
Yeah, don't we have a Jeff, one of our trainers, a van comes from Abilities United, maybe once a month, with a group of sort of older kids, younger adults that have learning challenges, and they just love it. Look at this video, so that's been really successful.
I mean, we've had whole crews of people with different disabilities working together on a program series on the move. But I was hoping you would tell about the kids in the mayor's court.
Oh yeah, totally. So the media center in town, I don't know if we can make this sustainable, where we had this amazing first year where a group of high school students that wanted civic engagement, because there really was no civics in the class. I mean, they didn't even know their own city government, how it operated. So we hooked them up with the mayor of Colorado, and they made some videos for the mayor about stuff that he cared about, infrastructure, what was going on beneath the streets, and they were really good videos, and we got them with the utilities people, and I think the kids got a real strong sense of connectedness to the city council. They got special proclamation, and then our mayor is a member of a larger organization, and he sent the videos to this woman, and they invited the kids to come to the inauguration, to
Presidential.
the presidential inauguration, to capture perspectives of elected officials. And through this great community partnership, we just got all the stuff kind of comped, and then the parents chipped in to pay for some stuff. So we took them to the inauguration, and we called the Youth Video Corps, for lack of a better. But we did have a
Their
tour.
final day, they got
Yeah.
to tour the White House, and Becky was with them, and the mayor had a friend who worked at the White House who said, "Don't leave this area." And then all of a sudden, they were invited in to meet Obama and Michelle and their dog.
Yeah, so we did have, so we're doing it the second year, so we have people calling up going, I want my kid to be in that program that gets to go meet the president. Yeah, so that was completely random, and that's actually a really hard act to follow. That's the only kind of stress, it's not really a stressor, but wow, that was our first year. It was almost with no resources. I mean, I'm paid staff, so my hours were covered. And it's just something that we kind of took on because the mayor was reaching out to us, say, I want to really get you engaged. So it was fabulous. And so, anyway, but we have now a second year and it's starting to roll
But a lot
out.
seems to depend on having a mayor who really buys into it. If
Yeah.
a mayor doesn't, you're not gonna have a great year.
Or you find someone else.
Or you go to another.
That's
Yeah.
true with the schools as well. I mean, I had, various parents come to me, well, why isn't there media education at this school? And why is there stuff going with that school? And can you have a meeting with, so-and-so? So in one school, we had a very motivated volunteer who got a part-time job, and he's like, oh, I want to start media over here at the school, because he was big on starting media with youth wherever he went. And so we had a meeting there with the principal, and she's like, I'll take money out of my personal discretionary budget. Here's a bunch of old equipment we have. You guys set up here's a room you can use. And they started a morning newscast, and it developed into this whole over 2 years. And the first 6 months was just fighting with the school district to unlock some computers that had been sitting brand new in a closet for 5 years, never used. That had been bought for media use at this brand new school, and they never hooked up the system. And once it got rolling, fantastic. I go to another school in the same school district, have a meeting with the vice principal there, because the parent actually one of the girls in the camp, oh, I want to have youth media for my daughter, and we should do all this, and here's Davis Media Access, they're coming to meet with you, they want to have, they're willing to help out, and I was like, yeah, well, whatever we can do to start the program, we'll consult, and have the meeting, oh, very nice, and then nothing. They just, that particular person was not a priority for them, because, the school districts are always having budget crisis, and this and that, so it does. It really depends on who you wind up with.
Equipment they can't use.
Yeah.
And don't know how to use.
One thing that we do in Tweakit that's pretty effective is we actually make house calls to the schools. Like I'll load up my little Hondo, and take 10 cameras, tripods, and just head down there, and then I train the teacher in the process.
But they still need hand holding.
They still, yeah.
We're going to be wrapping up in just a few moments. One hand.